The coffee shop on Maple Street had become Rachel's sanctuary over the past 7 months. She'd discovered it her second week in Portland, when everything still felt raw and terrifying, when she'd jumped at every shadow and analyzed every stranger's face for signs of recognition. The owner, Mrs. Chen, had taken one look at Rachel's hunted expression and wordlessly slid an extra pastry across the counter with her latte. No questions, no prying, just quiet kindness that had made Rachel cry in the bathroom for 10 minutes. Now, on a drizzly Tuesday morning in October, Rachel sat at her usual corner table with her laptop open, reviewing marketing proposals for the small tech startup that had taken a chance on her. Despite her resume gaps and vague references, she'd gotten good at explaining away the missing years. Freelancing, she'd say with a practiced smile, working remotely while caring for a sick family member, not entirely a lie. She had been caring for someone sick herself, recovering from 3 years of psychological warfare disguised as love. The usual, Mrs. Chen called from behind the counter, and Rachel looked up with a genuine smile. "Please, and maybe one of those lemon scones if you have any left. For you, always," Mrs. Chen winked, and Rachel felt the familiar warmth of being seen, of mattering to someone without owing them anything in return. The bell above the door chimed, and Rachel glanced up out of habit. The hypervigilance never fully left, Dr. Morrison had warned her about that, then did a double take. Daniel Park stood in the doorway, shaking rain from his dark hair, his paramedic uniform visible under his open jacket. He spotted Rachel immediately, and his face lit up in a way that still made her stomach flip even after 4 months of whatever this was between them. "Thought I might find you here," he said, approaching her table. "Mind if I join you for a few minutes? Shift doesn't start for another hour." "Please." Rachel gestured to the seat across from her, closing her laptop. "How was the conference?" "Exhausting. 3 days of advanced trauma protocols and terrible hotel coffee." Daniel settled into the chair with a sigh, then reached across the table to take her hand. The gesture was casual, comfortable, but he still always waited a beat, giving her time to pull away if she needed to. Rachel had explained early on about needing control over physical contact, and Daniel had simply nodded and adjusted without making her feel broken for it. "I missed you," he said quietly, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "I missed you too." Rachel squeezed his hand, marveling at how true it was. 7 months ago, the idea of missing anyone, of wanting someone in her space, would have been unthinkable. But Daniel had entered her life slowly, carefully respecting every boundary she'd set while making it clear he wasn't going anywhere. They'd met at the ear 4 months ago, when Rachel had sliced her hand open, trying to install new locks on her apartment door at midnight. Daniel had been the paramedic who'd transported her, had noticed the expensive deadbolts she was installing on a cheap apartment door, the way she'd flinched when the male nurse had approached too quickly. "You're safe here," he'd said quietly, positioning himself between her and the door, not trapping her, but giving her a clear exit. "No one's going to hurt you." Rachel had burst into tears, and Daniel had simply sat with her while she cried, not asking questions, not demanding explanations. Just present, he'd shown up at the coffee shop 2 days later. Mrs. Chen had apparently mentioned where Rachel spent her mornings, with a basic first aid kit and an offer to help install the locks properly. "No expectations," he'd said. "Just figured you might want someone who knows what they're doing, and maybe someone watching your back while you do it." That had been the beginning. Slow, careful, built on respect and patience. Daniel never pushed, never demanded access to the parts of herself she wasn't ready to share. He showed up when he said he would, called when he'd be late, and treated her like she was capable and strong, even when she felt like she was barely holding it together. "Earth to Rachel," Daniel's voice pulled her back to the present. "You okay? You got that faraway look?" "Sorry, just thinking," Rachel smiled, "about how glad I am you're back." "Smooth recovery," Daniel grinned, but his eyes were concerned. "Seriously though, you seem tense, more than usual." "What's going on?" Rachel hesitated. She'd gotten better at being honest with Daniel, at not hiding behind practiced deflections, but this particular anxiety felt foolish, paranoid even. "I've been feeling watched lately," she admitted. "The past few days, like someone's following me, but every time I look, there's no one there." Daniel's expression immediately sharpened, the playful paramedic replaced by someone assessing a threat. "Since when?" Thursday, maybe. I was leaving work and I had this feeling. Then again on Friday at the grocery store, and yesterday when I was walking home from here." Rachel pulled her hand back, wrapping both around her coffee cup. "It's probably nothing. I'm probably just being paranoid. Dr. Morrison says the hypervigilance can create false patterns." "Or," Daniel interrupted gently, "your instincts are picking up on something real. You've spent 3 years learning to read threats." "Rachel, don't dismiss what your gut is telling you." "But it's been 7 months," Rachel said, hearing the desperation in her own voice. "He doesn't know where I am. I changed my name, closed all my social media, moved across the country. There's no way Tyler could—" She stopped, her throat closing around her ex-husband's name. Even saying it out loud felt dangerous, like summoning something dark. Daniel leaned forward, his voice low and serious. "Listen to me. If you think he's found you, we deal with it. We call the police. We file reports. We make sure you're protected. You're not alone in this anymore." "The police didn't help before," Rachel said bitterly. "Restraining orders are just paper. They didn't stop him from showing up at my work, my apartment, my parents' house. They didn't stop him from—" She cut herself off, old fear rising. "I know." Daniel's jaw tightened. "And I know you have every reason not to trust the system, but things are different now. You're in a different state with different laws, and you have documentation of his previous violations, plus—" He paused. "Plus, you have me, and I'm not letting anyone hurt you." The fierce protectiveness in his voice should have scared her. Tyler had claimed to be protecting her too, had used that excuse to justify his control. But there was a fundamental difference. Daniel protected her agency, her choices, her right to make her own decisions. Tyler had protected his possession of her. "I don't want you to have to protect me," Rachel said quietly. "I don't want to be someone who needs protecting. I want to be strong enough to handle this myself." "Rachel." Daniel waited until she met his eyes. "Needing backup doesn't make you weak. It makes you smart. You spent 3 years handling everything alone because he isolated you from everyone who cared about you. But you're not alone anymore. So let me be your backup, please." Before Rachel could respond, her phone buzzed on the table, an unknown number. Her stomach dropped. "Don't answer it," Daniel said immediately, recognizing her expression. But Rachel was already reaching for the phone, that old compulsion to obey, to respond, to not make things worse by ignoring him. Her hand shook as she swiped to answer. "Hello? Rachel?" Tyler's voice, smooth and familiar and cold, slid through the phone like ice water in her veins. "Or should I say Maggie? That's what you're calling yourself now, isn't it, Maggie Thompson? Cute. Did you really think changing your name would stop me from finding you?" Rachel's vision tunneled across the table. Daniel stood immediately, moving around to her side. "How did you—" Rachel's voice came out as a whisper. "How did I find you?" Tyler laughed, that condescending sound she remembered too well. "Baby, you can't hide from me. You're mine. You'll always be mine. Did you really think you could just leave? Start over? That I'd let you go that easily?" "I have a restraining order," Rachel managed, her free hand gripping the edge of the table. "You're not supposed to contact me. This is a violation." "That restraining order is from Washington State, sweetheart. We're in Oregon now, different jurisdiction. And I haven't done anything illegal. Just calling my wife to talk." "Ex-wife," Rachel corrected, but her voice shook. "The divorce was finalized." "Paper," Tyler said dismissively. "Just like the restraining order, paper doesn't change what's real. You belong with me, Rachel. And I've been very patient. Letting you have your little tantrum, letting you play at independence, but it's time to come home now." Daniel plucked the phone from Rachel's trembling hand. "This is Rachel's boyfriend," he said, his voice calm but hard as steel. "And you need to stop calling." The silence on the other end was electric. Then Tyler's voice came back colder. "Who the fuck is this?" "Someone who actually cares about Rachel's well-being," Daniel replied. "Unlike you, now listen carefully. You're going to delete this number, stop stalking her, and go back to whatever hole you crawled out of. Because if you come near her, if you so much as send another text, I will make sure every law enforcement agency in the state knows you're violating a protective order." "You think you can protect her?" Tyler's voice dripped with contempt. "You don't know her like I do. You don't know what she needs. She's weak. She's—" Daniel ended the call and immediately blocked the number. Then he crouched beside Rachel's chair, his hands on her knees, grounding her. "Breathe," he said quietly. "In for 4. Hold for 4. Out for 4. With me, Rachel. Breathe." Rachel tried to follow his count, but her chest was too tight, the coffee shop spinning around her. Tyler had found her. After 7 months of freedom, of rebuilding, of finally starting to believe she might actually be safe, he'd found her. "I have to leave," she gasped. "I have to pack. I have to go somewhere else. I have to—" "Hey, look at me!" Daniel's voice cut through her panic. "You're not running again, not unless you want to." "But Rachel, you don't have to. We can handle this together." "You don't understand," Rachel said, tears streaming down her face. "You don't know what he's capable of. He's not going to just give up. He's going to keep pushing until—" "Until what?" Daniel's voice was gentle but firm. "Until you break. Until you come back. That's what he wants. For you to be so scared that running seems like the only option. But you have options now. You have me, you have Dr. Morrison, you have a support system, and most importantly, you have 7 months of evidence that you can survive without him. That you're stronger than he ever wanted you to believe." Rachel wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to believe that she could stand her ground, that she could face Tyler and win. But 3 years of conditioning whispered that Daniel was wrong, that she was foolish to think she could ever really escape. Mrs. Chen appeared beside their table with a glass of water and a knowing look. "The back office is empty if you need somewhere quiet," she said softly to Daniel. "And I've already called Officer Martinez. He's a regular, stops by every morning. He'll be here in 5 minutes." Daniel nodded gratefully, then helped Rachel to her feet. "Come on, let's get you somewhere you can breathe," as he guided her toward the back of the coffee shop. Rachel heard Mrs. Chen say to another customer, "We're closing early for a family emergency. Please finish up." The casual way this woman she barely knew was protecting her, creating safety without being asked, made Rachel cry harder. She'd spent so long believing she had to handle everything alone, that asking for help was weakness. But here were people, Daniel, Mrs. Chen, even Officer Martinez, who she'd only met twice, ready to stand with her, in the quiet of Mrs. Chen's office, surrounded by filing cabinets and the smell of coffee beans. Daniel held Rachel while she sobbed out 7 months of suppressed fear. And for the first time since hearing Tyler's voice, she thought maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to run, maybe this time. She could stand and fight. With Daniel beside her, she might actually win. Officer Martinez turned out to be a soft-spoken man in his 50s, with kind eyes and a methodical way of taking notes. He sat across from Rachel in Mrs. Chen's office, while Daniel stood behind her chair, his hand resting protectively on her shoulder. "Walk me through the timeline," Officer Martinez said, his pen poised over his notepad. "When did you first notice you were being watched?" Rachel recounted the past few days, her voice steadier now that the initial panic had subsided, the feeling of being followed. The car she'd noticed parked across from her apartment building 3 nights in a row. Silver sedan, she thought, though she hadn't gotten the plates. The man in a baseball cap she'd seen outside her office building, who'd turned away when she looked directly at him. And the phone call just now. "He admitted to tracking you down?" Officer Martinez asked. "He knew my new name," Rachel said. "Maggie Thompson. I legally changed it when I moved here. I've been so careful. No social media, no contact with anyone from my old life except my parents, and they don't even know my exact address. Just that I'm in Portland." "How long were you married to Tyler Brennan?" 3 years together, for 4 before that." Rachel's hands twisted in her lap. "I filed for divorce 14 months ago. It was finalized 8 months ago, right before I moved here. And the restraining order, issued in Washington State 9 months ago. After he showed up at my apartment at 2 a.m. demanding to talk. That was the 3rd time he'd violated the no-contact agreement from the divorce. Before that, there were—" Rachel paused, shame coloring her voice. "There were incidents during the marriage. Police were called twice. But I didn't press charges either time. He always convinced me it was my fault, that I'd provoked him, that if I just tried harder—" "That's textbook abuse," Officer Martinez interrupted gently. "And nothing you did provoked what he did. I need you to understand that." Rachel nodded, though the shame didn't fully dissipate. Years of Tyler's gaslighting didn't disappear just because someone told her it wasn't her fault. "The Washington restraining order is enforceable here," Officer Martinez continued, making notes. Interstate protective orders are recognized under federal law. The fact that he contacted you, that he's admitted to tracking you down, that's enough for us to pursue violation charges. But how do we prove it was him? Daniel asked. The call came from an unknown number. He could claim it was someone else or that Rachel is making it up. The phone company can trace it, Officer Martinez said, and if Tyler's smart, he probably used a burner phone or a spoofing app. But there are still digital footprints. The bigger issue is Rachel's immediate safety. He looked at her directly. Do you feel safe at your current residence? Rachel thought about her apartment. The third-floor walk-up with the locks Daniel had helped her install, the pepper spray she kept by her bed, the escape plan she'd mentally rehearsed 100 times. I don't know, she admitted. If he knows where I work, he probably knows where I live. I want her staying with me, Daniel said immediately. At least until we know what we're dealing with. My building has secure entry, cameras, and I'm on the 8th floor, harder to access than her current place. Rachel's first instinct was to refuse, to insist she could handle this herself. But Dr. Morrison's voice echoed in her head. Accepting help isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Let people care about you. Okay, she said quietly. For a few days at least. Officer Martinez nodded approvingly. Good. I'm also going to increase patrols around your workplace and previous residence. Do you have a recent photo of Tyler? Rachel pulled out her phone with shaking hands. Navigating to the photo she'd kept hidden in a locked folder. Evidence, Dr. Morrison had said. In case she ever needed it, she found one from 2 years ago. Tyler at a work function, his handsome face smiling at the camera. He'd been charming that night, attentive, playing the role of devoted husband. 3 hours later, he'd screamed at her for 20 minutes because she'd talked too long to a male colleague. He's good-looking, Officer Martinez observed neutrally, and Rachel heard what he wasn't saying. Abusers often are. That's how they get away with it. He's a financial analyst, Rachel said. Makes good money, well-respected in his field. Everyone thinks he's this great guy, his friends, his family. They all thought I was crazy for leaving him. Abusers are often pillars of the community, Officer Martinez said. It's part of the pattern, makes it harder for victims to be believed. He stood, pocketing his notepad. I'm going to file this report immediately and reach out to Washington authorities about the restraining order violation. In the meantime, vary your routes to work, stay in public places, and if you see him or feel unsafe, call 911 immediately. Don't wait. Don't second-guess yourself. Okay. After Officer Martinez left, Mrs. Chen brought in tea and those lemon scones Rachel had wanted earlier. On the house, she said firmly. And Rachel, my nephew is a locksmith. Very good, very discreet. I'll have him check your apartment tomorrow. Make sure everything is as secure as possible. You don't have to, Rachel started. I know I don't have to, Mrs. Chen interrupted. I want to. You're good people. You deserve to feel safe. After she left, Rachel and Daniel sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of the situation settling over them. You don't have to do this, Rachel finally said. Let me stay with you. Get involved in my mess. Tyler he's not going to just back off. This could get complicated, even dangerous. You barely know me and... Rachel, Daniel turned his chair to face her directly. I'm going to stop you right there. First, I've known you for 4 months. We've spent nearly every day together. I know you take your coffee with oat milk and too much sugar. I know you're afraid of thunderstorms but won't admit it. I know you cry at dog food commercials and that you're brilliant at your job, even though you constantly doubt yourself. So don't tell me I barely know you. Rachel felt tears threatening again. That's not what I meant. Second, Daniel continued, this isn't your mess. This is something being done to you by someone who refuses to respect your autonomy. There's a difference. And third, his voice softened. I'm already involved, Rachel. I've been involved since the day I met you and saw how hard you were fighting to rebuild your life. You don't get to protect me from this by pushing me away. I'm a grown man making my own choices, and I choose to be here. Why? Rachel whispered. Why would you choose this? You could walk away right now, find someone without all this baggage, someone who isn't being stalked by their psycho ex-husband. Because I care about you, Daniel said simply. Because when I'm with you, I feel more myself than I have in years. Because you're brave and strong and you make me laugh even when you're terrified. And because... He paused, something vulnerable crossing his face. Because I'm falling in love with you, Rachel, and I don't run when things get hard. Rachel's breath caught. They'd been carefully avoiding the L word, both aware of how fragile this thing between them was, how easily Rachel's trauma could derail it. But hearing Daniel say it out loud, with such certainty, made something crack open in her chest. "I'm falling in love with you too," she admitted, the words terrifying and liberating at once. "That's what scares me. Tyler used love as a weapon. He said he loved me while he was destroying me. I don't know how to trust that your love is different." "Then let me show you," Daniel said, taking her hands. "Not with words, but with actions. Let me be consistent. Let me respect your boundaries. Let me prove that love doesn't have to hurt, doesn't have to control, doesn't have to diminish you." Rachel nodded, unable to speak around the lump in her throat. They spent the afternoon gathering essentials from Rachel's apartment. Daniel insisted on going in first to make sure no one was waiting inside. The place was empty, but Rachel felt violated anyway. Seeing her sanctuary through the lens of Tyler knowing about it, she packed quickly, taking clothes and toiletries and the few items that mattered, the photo of her grandmother, the journal Dr. Morrison had given her, the small succulent Daniel had brought her on their first official date. "That's it?" Daniel asked, looking at her single duffel bag. "I got good at traveling light," Rachel said. "When I left Tyler, I packed one suitcase. Everything else I left behind. After that, it was easier to not accumulate too much, easier to run if I needed to." "You're not running this time," Daniel reminded her gently. "I'm not running," Rachel repeated, trying to make herself believe it. Daniel's apartment was everything Rachel's wasn't. Spacious, well lit, with actual furniture that matched, and art on the walls. The kind of place that felt like a home rather than a temporary way station. "Guest room is down the hall," Daniel said, setting her bag down. "Bathroom's connected and there are fresh towels in the closet, but Rachel—" He waited until she looked at him. "My room is right next door, if you need anything. If you have a nightmare or just want company, I'm there. No expectations, no pressure, just available." That night, Rachel lay in Daniel's guest bed, staring at the ceiling and listening to the unfamiliar sounds of his apartment. Around midnight, her phone buzzed, another unknown number. Her hands shook as she opened the message. "Saw you with him today. Does he know what you're really like? Does he know how you drove me crazy? How you pushed until I had no choice but to react? I'll give you one chance, Rachel. Leave him, come back, or I'll make sure he sees the truth about who you really are." Rachel's vision blurred with tears. This was Tyler's specialty, taking her worst fears and using them against her, making her believe that she was the problem, that anyone who really knew her would see how damaged, how difficult, how fundamentally unlovable she was. A soft knock at the door. "Rachel, you okay? I heard your phone." Rachel considered lying, pretending she was fine, but she was tired of lying, tired of handling everything alone. "He texted me," she said. Her voice small. The door opened and Daniel appeared in pajama pants and a t-shirt, his hair messy from sleep. "Can I see?" Rachel handed him the phone, watching his face darken as he read the message. "This is classic Darvo," Daniel said, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Deny, attack, reverse, victim and offender. He's trying to make you doubt yourself, doubt us, don't let him." "But what if he's right?" Rachel whispered. "What if I did drive him to—" "No," Daniel's voice was firm. "Rachel, I need you to hear this. Nothing you did, nothing you could have done, justified his abuse. You could have been the most difficult person in the world, and it still wouldn't have given him the right to hurt you, to control you, to make you afraid in your own home. That was his choice, his failure, not yours. I just—" Rachel's voice broke. "I'm so tired of being scared. I'm so tired of him still having this power over me even when he's not here." "I know." Daniel reached out slowly, giving her time to refuse, then pulled her into his arms when she leaned into him. "But you're stronger than he ever let you believe. You left him. You rebuilt your life. You're still standing. That takes incredible courage." Rachel buried her face in his shoulder, letting herself cry, letting herself be held without fear. This was different from Tyler. Daniel's arms felt safe, not confining, comforting, not controlling. "I forwarded the text to Officer Martinez," Daniel said quietly. "More evidence. We're building a case, Rachel. Every time Tyler contacts you. Every threat. Every violation. It all goes on record. He can't keep doing this without consequences." "He always has before," Rachel said bitterly. Because you were alone before, because the system failed you, but things are different now. Daniel pulled back enough to meet her eyes. You have people in your corner, Mrs. Chen, Officer Martinez, Dr. Morrison, me. We're not letting him get away with this. Rachel wanted to believe him, wanted to believe that this time would be different, that she could actually be free of Tyler's shadow. But experience had taught her that wanting something didn't make it true. Stay, she heard herself say. Tonight, I don't want to be alone. You sure? Daniel asked carefully. I'm sure, just hold me, please. Daniel settled beside her on top of the covers, pulling her close, and Rachel finally felt her racing heart begin to slow. In the darkness, with Daniel's steady breathing and the warmth of his presence, she almost felt safe, because somewhere out there, Tyler was planning his next move, and Rachel knew from experience that he never gave up without a fight. 3 days passed in tense anticipation. Rachel went to work with Daniel driving her, varied her routes, stayed hypervigilant. Officer Martinez had confirmed that the texts came from burner phones, untraceable but documented. The Washington authorities had issued a warrant for Tyler's arrest for violating the protective order. But he'd apparently left his apartment and his job. No one knew where he was, which meant he could be anywhere, could be in Portland, could be watching. On Friday evening, Rachel was leaving work when she saw him. Tyler stood across the street from her office building, leaning against a silver sedan. Arms crossed, he looked exactly as she remembered, tall, handsome, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit. To anyone passing by, he looked like a successful businessman waiting for someone. Only Rachel could see the cold fury in his eyes. Her feet stopped moving. Her entire body locked up, 3 years of conditioned fear flooding back in an instant. Tyler's lips curved into that smile she remembered too well, the one that said he'd won, that she'd never really escaped, that she belonged to him whether she wanted to or not. He pushed off from the car and started walking toward her. Rachel's hand fumbled for her phone, but her fingers wouldn't cooperate. She was dimly aware of her co-workers streaming past her, oblivious to the danger, to the predator crossing the street with deliberate steps. Rachel, Tyler's voice carried across the distance, smooth and familiar. We need to talk. Stay away from me. Rachel's voice came out thin, reedy. You're violating a restraining order. The police are nowhere around, Tyler finished, now standing 10 feet away, close enough that she could see the vein pulsing in his temple, the one that always showed when he was barely containing his rage. It's just us, baby, like it should be. I'm not your baby, I'm not your anything. Rachel forced herself to stand straighter, to remember what Dr. Morrison had taught her about reclaiming her power. I left you, I divorced you, it's over. It's not over until I say it's over. Tyler took another step closer, and Rachel automatically stepped back, her body remembering the dance of avoiding his reach. You think you can just walk away? Start over. Replace me with some nobody paramedic who doesn't know the first thing about you. Daniel knows everything about me, Rachel said, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. The real me, not the terrified shell you tried to turn me into. Tyler's expression darkened. I made you who you are. Everything you have, everything you've accomplished. That was because of me, because I pushed you, because I made you better. You made me afraid, Rachel interrupted, anger finally cutting through the fear. You made me doubt myself, hate myself, believe I was worthless without you. That's not love. Tyler, that's abuse. Abuse! Tyler laughed, bitter and sharp. I gave you everything, a home, financial security, my complete devotion, and you repay me by running away, spreading lies about me, destroying my reputation. I told the truth, Rachel said, about the bruises you gave me, the times you shoved me against walls, grabbed my throat, made me beg for your forgiveness for things that weren't my fault. That's not lies, that's documentation. You provoked me. Tyler's voice dropped to that dangerous quiet that used to precede violence. You always knew exactly what buttons to push, how to make me lose control. You wanted me to hurt you so you could play victim. She didn't want anything except to be safe. Daniel's voice cut through Tyler's tirade like a blade. Rachel's head whipped around to find Daniel standing behind her, still in his paramedic uniform, his expression harder than she'd ever seen it. He must have gotten off shift early, must have come straight here. Tyler's eyes narrowed, assessing this new threat. The boyfriend, how touching. Tell me, does she flinch when you touch her? Does she wake up screaming? Does she cry when you— Stop talking about her like she's not here, Daniel interrupted, moving to stand beside Rachel, not in front of her, not blocking her, but beside her, an equal. And stop trying to convince everyone that your abuse was her fault. We're past that now. You don't know anything about us, Tyler spat. About what we had. You're just some rebound, some convenient distraction. I know she's brave enough to leave someone who terrorized her for years, Daniel said calmly. I know she's rebuilding a life you tried to destroy, and I know you're scared because your control over her is gone, and you can't handle it. Tyler's composure cracked, rage flashing across his face. You think you can protect her. You think you're enough. She's damaged goods, man. She's got more issues than— Say one more word about her, Daniel interrupted, his voice dropping to something dangerous. And I'll forget I'm a medical professional who's supposed to do no harm. Rachel put her hand on Daniel's arm, feeling the tension coiled there. He's not worth it, she said softly. Then, turning to Tyler, she found courage she didn't know she still had. You wanted me to be afraid of you, and I was for so long, but I'm not anymore. You're just a sad, pathetic man who needs to control women because you can't control yourself. Tyler's face flushed red. You ungrateful— Officers are 2 minutes out, Daniel said, showing his phone where he'd apparently been recording the entire conversation. I called them the second I saw you, and I've captured everything you just said. The implicit threats, the harassment, the violation of a protective order. So you have 2 choices. Leave now and maybe get a head start, or wait here and get arrested. Your call. For a moment, Rachel thought Tyler might actually lunge at them, might let his rage override his self-preservation. But then sirens wailed in the distance, getting closer, and calculation replaced fury in his eyes. This isn't over, Tyler said, backing toward his car. You can't hide from me, Rachel, sooner or later. It is over, Rachel said firmly, because even if you find me again, even if you keep trying to scare me, I'm not alone anymore and I'm never coming back. So go ahead and waste your life chasing something you can never have again. I'm done being afraid of you. Tyler stared at her for a long moment, and Rachel saw the exact second he realized she meant it, that she'd actually escaped him. Not just physically, but psychologically, that he'd lost. He got in his car and sped away just as 2 police cruisers rounded the corner. Lights flashing, Officer Martinez was in the first car. He took their statements, watched Daniel's recording, and immediately put out an APB for Tyler's vehicle. We'll get him, he promised Rachel. He's facing multiple felony charges now. Interstate stalking, violating a protective order, harassment. He's looking at serious prison time. After the police left, after Rachel had given her statement 3 times to different officers, she finally allowed herself to feel the full impact of what had just happened. Her legs gave out, and Daniel caught her, holding her up as she shook with released adrenaline. You were so brave, Daniel murmured into her hair. God, Rachel, you were incredible. I was terrified, Rachel admitted, but I was more angry than afraid. He doesn't get to control me anymore. He doesn't get to make me run, to make me small, to make me doubt myself. No, he doesn't, Daniel agreed, and he never will again. They sat in Daniel's car for a long time, Rachel processing, Daniel just being present. Finally, Rachel spoke. When I left him, I thought I'd never be able to trust anyone again, that every relationship would be tainted by what he did to me, so that I was too broken to ever be loved properly. You were never broken, Daniel said softly. Hurt, yes. Traumatized, absolutely, but not broken. You don't break, Rachel. You bend. You adapt. You survive. That's not weakness. That's steel. Rachel turned to look at him, this man who'd shown her what real love looked like, patient, respectful, empowering rather than diminishing. I love you, she said. Not the scared I'm falling kind, the sure kind, the I choose you kind. Daniel's smile was brilliant. I love you too, the I'm not going anywhere kind, the you're stuck with me kind. Even with all my trauma, all my baggage, all the therapy sessions and panic attacks and hypervigilance, especially with all of that, Daniel said firmly, because that's part of who you are now. You survived something terrible and came out the other side. That's not baggage, Rachel. That's proof of your strength. Rachel kissed him then, pouring everything she couldn't say into it. Gratitude, love, hope, trust when they pulled apart. She felt lighter than she had in years. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we go home," Daniel said. "We order terrible takeout, we watch something mindless on TV, and we just exist together. No drama. No fear, just us." "That sounds perfect." 2 weeks later, Officer Martinez called with news. Tyler had been arrested trying to board a flight to Mexico. He'd been denied bail and was awaiting trial on multiple felony charges. The prosecutor was confident about conviction, given the evidence and Rachel's testimony. "You'll likely have to testify," Officer Martinez warned. "Face him in court. Are you prepared for that?" Rachel looked at Daniel, who squeezed her hand encouragingly. She thought about the woman she'd been 3 years ago, trapped, afraid, believing she deserved the abuse. Then she thought about who she was now. Employed, independent, loved by someone who saw her strength rather than her supposed weaknesses. "Yes," she said firmly, "I'm ready." The trial came 3 months later. Rachel sat in the witness stand and told her story. Not Tyler's version, where she was the problem, but the truth, the bruises, the verbal abuse, the isolation, the fear. She showed the photos she'd secretly taken of injuries, the medical records, the police reports he'd convinced her not to file. Tyler's lawyer tried to paint her as vindictive, as a woman scorned, seeking revenge. But the evidence was overwhelming, and when Daniel testified about the stalking, about Tyler's own recorded words, the jury's expression said everything. Guilty on all counts, 3 years in prison, with a permanent restraining order upon release. Outside the courthouse, Rachel breathed free air and felt truly safe for the first time in years. "How do you feel?" Daniel asked. "Like I can finally exhale," Rachel said. "Like I can make plans beyond just surviving, like—" She paused, then smiled. "Like I get to have a future now." "We get to have a future," Daniel corrected, pulling her close. "Together, if you want that." "I want that," Rachel said. "I want Sunday mornings and boring routines and fights about whose turn it is to do dishes. I want normal, I want us." "Then that's what we'll have," Daniel promised. 6 months later, Rachel stood in Mrs. Chen's coffee shop, looking at the corner table where this had all started, where Tyler's phone call had shattered her carefully constructed peace, but also where Daniel had proven he wasn't going anywhere. "Thinking about redecorating?" Mrs. Chen asked, appearing beside her with a knowing smile. "Thinking about how far I've come," Rachel said. "A year ago, I was terrified every second of every day. Now I'm—" She paused, searching for the word. "I'm happy, actually. Genuinely happy." "You deserve to be, Mrs. Chen said firmly. "And that young man of yours, he's good for you, brings out your smile." Rachel thought about Daniel, currently at his apartment making dinner for them both, probably burning something because he was ambitious in the kitchen but not particularly skilled. She thought about their life together. The mundane, beautiful ordinary of it. The way he still gave her space when she needed it. The way she'd learned to trust his consistency. The way they'd built something real from the ashes of her past. "He is good for me," Rachel agreed. "But I think I'm good for me too now. I'm not who I was when Tyler had control. I'm not even who I was when I first ran. I'm someone new, someone stronger. Someone free," Mrs. Chen added. "Yes," Rachel said, smiling. "Someone free." And for the first time in longer than she could remember, Rachel believed it completely.